It's been 30 years since South Korea and ASEAN have established diplomatic ties. South Korea-ASEAN Special Summit and the inaugural South Korea-Mekong Summit will be held on November 25th.
우리는 아시안과 함께 아시아의 평화와 공동 번영의 미래를 열어야 합니다.
South Korea and ASEAN nations have been cooperating to improve their ties in economy, culture, people-to-people exchanges and more. And the two sides' strenuous efforts are being paid off, with ASEAN nations emerging as South Korea's second biggest trading partners in 2017. The world has its eyes on what kind of development would be made at the upcoming events, marking the 30th anniversary of the establishment of the bilateral relations. The Point visited the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Korea to ask about the main agenda to be discussed at the two summits, as well as the past, present and future outlook of the South Korea-ASEAN relations. Let's meet Kang Kyung-wha, who represents South Korea in the international community with a charisma based on years of diplomatic experience and sharp insight.
Hello, welcome to The Point. I'm your host, Daniel Che. The 2019 South Korea-ASEAN Special Summit will be held in Busan on November 25th. Our focus today is the biggest multilateral gathering under the Moon Jae-in administration and the new Southern policy. We'll be sitting down for talks with South Korea's top diplomat at the nation's foreign ministry. So, let's get to the point. And to help us dissect today's topic into digestible bites, we are joined by South Korea's top diplomat, Foreign Minister Kang Kyung-wha, here with us on our program. It's an honor to have you with us.
I'm very happy to be here with you.
Well, I'm sure this is a very busy time for you, so we appreciate you making time for us today. The summit between South Korea and ASEAN, the special summit, is a very special event for both sides and the world. How would you reflect on this special relationship that dates back decades?
Well, we're marking 30 years of dialogue partnership. So just to hit some of the landmarks over the past 30 years, it all started with a sectoral partnership dialogue in '89. We brought that to full dialogue partnership just 2 years later. We enhanced that to a summit-level discussion in 1997. We declared this relationship as strategic in 2007. And then we established our permanent representation, our embassy to ASEAN in 2012. So that's the official level dialogue. And we have also had some institutions to bring about the people's engagement, the cultural engagement in this, with the establishment of the ROK ASEAN Center in 2009, I think, and then the opening of an ASEAN Culture Center in Busan in 2017. So there have been some key milestone events, and that's all so reflected in the volume of this relationship, which has grown 20-fold when you talk about the trade, from something like 8.7 billion 30 years ago to 160 billion US dollars at the end of 2018. And the people-to-people, the people traffic between the two sides have also increased something like 40-fold. From just about 250,000 in 30 years ago to 11 million at the end of 2018. So volume-wise, quality-wise, the breadth and the depth of this relationship that Korea has nurtured with ASEAN has grown hugely over the past 30 years. But we're not satisfied with that. I think on both sides, we agree there's a huge potential to take this 1, 2, 3 steps higher. And that's the core of this commemorative summit that we are having. It is to see the next 30 years, looking back upon the past 30 years, and to chart a vision for 30 future years to come.
30 years can pass by in the blink of an eye, or it could feel like a lifetime, depending on how you use it, I suppose. To add to your explanation of the special relationship, we have a special clip that's prepared to explain to our viewers the importance of the relationship between South Korea and ASEAN members and to highlight the significance of the upcoming summit. So, let's roll the clip.
In the global era, trade and economy from all corners of the world are deeply intertwined. Amid growing awareness of the importance of diplomatic cooperation, leaders of South Korea and ASEAN will meet to revisit their past 30 years of ties and plan their relations moving forward for the next 30 years. The South Korea city of Busan will host the 2019 South Korea-ASEAN Special Summit for 2 days starting November 25th. The event will feature leaders of 10 ASEAN nations and South Korea, as well as CEOs from the participating countries' companies. They are set to address pending issues in the Asian region during summits, bilateral talks, CEO summits, and cultural events. Acting as the host of the summit, South Korea has become the only nation among countries that have officially established ties with ASEAN to organize all 3 special summits. Established on August 8, 1967, following the Bangkok Declaration, ASEAN is a political and economic organization between Southeast Asian nations, consisting of 10 countries including the Philippines, Singapore and Thailand. As of 2018, ASEAN has a population of about 653 million, with a combined GDP reaching about $2.98 trillion, making up a substantial portion of the global trade and economic markets. South Korea and ASEAN relations had first been established 30 years ago in 1989 when the two sides signed a sectoral dialogue partnership. 2 years later, in 1991, the two sides agreed to upgrade their ties into a full dialogue partnership. In 2004, they announced the joint declaration of comprehensive cooperation partnership, and in 2010, they elevated their relations to a strategic partnership. Through maintaining 30 years of exchanges and cooperation, ASEAN has become South Korea's second biggest partner in trade, investment and construction, and the #1 travel destination for Korean travelers in 2017. The 2019 South Korea-ASEAN Special Summit will be held under the theme of Partnership for Peace, Prosperity for People. It will be the largest diplomatic event specially designed to mark the 30th anniversary of the establishment of ties between the two sides. Organizers have prepared a total of 30 events to take place on the sidelines of the summit, which is 5 times bigger than those held during the 2016 edition. They also added a lot of those events are not just for the leaders of the countries, but are also open for the Korean and ASEAN people as well. The global community is paying its attention to the meeting between the leaders of South Korea and ASEAN, who are expanding their presence and impact beyond Asia.
So, Minister Kang, the special summit, the commemorative summit between South Korea and ASEAN members, this won't be the first time. South Korea will be hosting it for the 3rd time. The last one was in 2009 and 2014. Could you tell us more about the preparations and how it's different from the previous editions?
Well, in terms of the preparations, since agreeing with ASEAN that we would have this commemorative summit, it's been a whole of government effort to prepare for this very special moment. So, in the months leading up to this summit, there have been various ministerial dialogues on both sides at the official level, but we've also wanted to reach out to the public to bring in the public engagement, the people on board in terms of the preparations for this event. I chair an intergovernmental committee preparing for this, and we've met several times. We will be having another meeting today, I believe, or tomorrow to take final last-minute stock of the preparations. We have a team set up by the Foreign Ministry to work out the every detail of the logistics involved, because we are at the end of the day welcoming leaders of 10 countries to Busan. Our bureau in charge of the substance of the discussion has been upgraded to an ASEAN bureau, really just to focus on ASEAN-related matters. And the President took the cabinet down to Busan to have the the weekly cabinet meeting there at a room in Mexico where we will be having the commemorative summit, just to highlight the importance of this event to the citizens of Busan, but also the country as a whole. And afterwards, I took the time to go and check out the venue. There's still a lot of work. I saw workers, putting up new lighting and panels. We will be bringing in new furniture, but very assured that things are on track. And the hardware of the conference will be pitch perfect. We are also working on the substance of the conference, which is the agenda, the outcome, and on that also very assured through my ASEAN Bureau colleagues and my deputy minister who has been the SOM. He's the senior official in charge of our relations with ASEAN, and very much excited about the substantive outcome of the summit as well. As I said, we are bringing the public aboard in these preparations. For example, we've had a train ride of Koreans and people from ASEAN from various sectors of life joining a train ride together for a couple of days, visiting key cities in this country, enjoying the attractions that the city has to offer, but also enjoying speeches, lectures, talks, discussions, and performing artists while they were riding the train together. We've also had, and I myself have personally taken part. We've brought ASEAN countries are very famous for the coffee. And each country with a unique taste to the coffee beans that they produce. We brought it all together and blended it to the right optimal taste, and we called it the ASEAN blend. And we have 2 coffee trucks that are traveling around the country to where people meet to share the ASEAN blend coffee with Korean consumers. And we're all hoping that this enhances the public awareness and public excitement about this commemorative summit.
Right, a blending pot instead of a melting pot of various ethnicities and diverse culture, I suppose. And in Southeast Asian countries, I believe they call coffee kopi in their own unique accent, as we have our own. Will we see all 10 ASEAN member heads taking part in the summit?
Yes. All 10 have confirmed participation. The ROK, the summit, so we will have the ASEAN summit. We will also have a summit of ROK and Mekong leaders, and all 10 are coming. Some will be coming before to have bilateral visits. Some will be staying on for 1 or 2 more days to also have official bilateral discussions with President Moon. And the remaining 6 will be also having a short, brief summit discussions with President Moon. So yes, all 10 taking part in the ASEAN-ROK summit discussions and the ROK Mekong discussions, but also having bilateral meetings with the President.
So for these sessions, what will be some of the key agenda items?
For the ROK ASEAN Summit, as I said, taking stock of the past 30 years and spelling out the future, a shared vision for the next 30 years. We're also very much keen on what interests ASEAN. And ASEAN, I think the key word within ASEAN is connectivity. ASEAN is a very diverse region with varying levels of economic development, varying cultures, different strength in terms of the natural resources, different potential for future growth. And ASEAN has this vision of becoming a truly integrated ASEAN community. And that means connecting. Whether it's hardware or software, infrastructure, aviation, water resources management, And of course, these are all areas that Korea had to grapple with and still do in our half-century national growth trajectories. So we have a lot to share. We also want to explore new horizons in this connectivity through exchanges of expertise with the ASEAN countries. So connectivity will be a big part of the discussions at the summit. On the Mekong side, the Korea Mekong side, our dialogue with Mekong was at the ministerial level, an annual ministerial meeting between Korea and the Mekong, 5 Mekong countries. This time we're upgrading it to the summit level for the first time because we see the growing importance of the Mekong region. Mekong is a subgrouping within ASEAN. The 5 Mekong countries, and they are in fact the fastest growing part of ASEAN, with something like 6 to 7% annual growth by individual countries. Huge potential in terms of the natural resources, very strategically located. So, perfect timing for us to upgrade our engagement with Mekong as well to the summit level.
I heard it's a worthwhile investment today to study their language and culture as well these days.
Yes. I think one of the things that we're concentrating on in this summit, one thing I should say, the newness of the summit this time compared with the past 2 previous summits is that this is all part of our new Southern policy that the President has been championing. And this is, we want to reach beyond the CME region. Of course, the 4 countries that surround us are vitally important partners. But I think now Korea, as the 11th largest economy in the world, with 28 million traveling to every corner of the world, it's time for us to reach out much more vigorously and robustly beyond this immediate neighborhood. And that's our new Southern policy. That's our new Northern policy. And a key partner in our new Southern, of course, is ASEAN. And so this commemorative summit is embedded in that larger policy framework that makes it qualitatively different from the 2 previous summits. Of course, we build upon the outcome and the achievements of the 2 previous summits, but we truly mean it when we're saying our new Southern policy with ASEAN at the core is to spell out a vision together with ASEAN as a key neighbor and a vital partner.
Are there any specific areas the 2 sides, ASEAN and South Korea, should work closer together on to strengthen their ties?
I think we build our new Southern policy on the 3 pillars of people, prosperity, and peace. I think prosperity, the substantive, the business, the economic side of it, there's the business logic that our companies, our startups are keen to build upon. So I think the government role is very much to come behind that and support that. But on the people side, yes, K-pop is hugely popular. And many Southeast Asians come to Korea to work and to marry and form families, and also to study. We have many students who are studying at various levels in our universities. But when you take a survey of the perceptions, it turns out that that understanding is quite shallow. A recent survey indicates that perhaps 10% of our Korean adults have no idea what ASEAN is. 50% say they barely know the name ASEAN. Other surveys indicate that people know ASEAN mainly as a tourist destination or a resort area or linked to poverty or underdevelopment. And I think so there's a lot more work to be done to enhance mutual understanding, to strengthen the cultural exchanges, the people-to-people exchanges. So to focus on that people dimension has been has been central to our effort in preparing for the summit, and it will continue to be a key part of our efforts going forward beyond the summit.
Increasing awareness and understanding between the people seems to be a very important homework in the future. Will President Moon Jae-in have time to hold separate bilateral talks on the sidelines with every one of the heads taking part?
Yes, as the timing is very brief. So it's been a juggle trying to manage the president's schedule, but also the schedule of the visiting presidents and prime ministers. But we will be having, as I said, two official visits before the summit and two official visits afterwards. But in between, charting out time and coordinating with the visiting presidents and prime ministers, so that, yes, they will have, my president will have bilateral engagements with each of the 10 that summiteers.
You've mentioned connectivity as a very important ingredient in terms of regional cooperation and, of course, the essential idea that integrates the ASEAN region. What are some of the key industries that can help improve connectivity, and what can South Korea bring to the table to help in that effort?
ASEAN has a master plan on ASEAN connectivity, and I think 5 key areas. One is infrastructure, roads, waterways, and so on, and logistics, the flow of things within the region, IT, digital innovation, regulation, harmonization of regulations among the countries, and then, people mobility, making it easier for people to visit one another, and we want to support that. As I said, these are all areas that we still are trying to improve our game, push new horizons, and I think linking up with ASEAN as they pursue this agenda of connectivity, we can also grow.
Right. We are the leader in some of these areas,
Yes.
but of course we can always learn and never be too cocky about being at top.
Yeah, yes.
The Korea-ASEAN Special Summit will be held in Busan, not just for one day, but for 3 days, starting on November 25th. So I'm sure there are plenty of exciting sideline events lined up. Could you tell us a little bit more about them?
We call all of this a boom up towards the summit. D-40, D-20, D-15. We've had various events. D-1 on the eve of the summit, on the 24th, in Changwon. The Ministry of Culture is organizing what they bill as an ASEAN Fantasia that will bring together top performing artists from the ASEAN countries, as well as our own K-pop stars for an evening of exciting musical performances. So that will sort of start off the summit events. There will also be the usual CEO summit that brings in business leaders from the 11 countries. Startup summit, because both Korea and ASEAN countries are keen to grow small and medium, and venture firms. So there will be a separate startup summit. We're also organizing an innovation forum on culture, because culture is also evolving, growing, and we want to see where the innovative ideas have led to the huge popularity of K-pop in Southeast Asia, for example, and how to pretty much repeat the same boom of ASEAN pop culture in Korea. And we will be having some exciting names speaking at that Culture Innovation Forum. We will also have a Smart City fair. Smart City, I should point out, is also something that is concentrating minds, both in my country, but also in ASEAN. ASEAN has a Smart City Network initiative, and very keen to join with our Smart City initiatives. So in terms of these exciting side events also, a lot more diverse and a lot more rich than the previous summits. And also, I should add, on the Mekong side, as the Korea-Mekong summit takes place, we will be preparing a Korea-Mekong biodiversity special exhibition so that the leaders can finish and tour this exhibition together, because biodiversity, i.e. preserving the nature in the stage of the climate change challenge in terms of natural disasters becoming much more frequent and severe, and how to pull the best of our expertise to preserve that diversity is the theme of that exhibition. We're also working with ASEAN to open up an ASEAN Biodiversity Center in Myanmar. So biodiversity, nature preservation, management of water resources is a big agenda on our collaboration with Mekong. And these are all, as I explained, indicated in the side events that we are preparing.
Looks like calling them side events will be the understatement of the year.
Yes, you could say that.
Well, before we move on to our next topic, which is the South Korea-Mekong Nation Summit, we have a special clip. So let's take a closer look into what makes this South Korea-Mekong Summit extra special. Let's roll the clip.
Leaders of South Korea, Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, Thailand and Vietnam will meet for the inaugural South Korea-Mekong Summit in Busan on November 27th. South Korea and Mekong nations have adopted the Han River Declaration, which established the comprehensive partnership between the two sides during the first Foreign Ministers meeting in 2011. Since then, the two sides have been holding a foreign ministerial meeting every year until they decided to hold their first summit this year. Mekong nations are 5 members within the ASEAN that form a small regional group. The name of the group comes from the Mekong River, which flows through each of the countries. Mekong nations have a large proportion of young population, are abundant in natural resources, and are known as a hub connecting ASEAN, China, and India. Their economy is also showing an average of 6% growth every year. Back in September, President Moon Jae-in had unveiled the South Korea-Mekong Vision, his measures to achieve co-prosperity between the two sides during his trip to Southeast Asian nations.
한국은 메콩 국가들과 함께 번영하길 바라며 한강의 기적이 메콩강의 기적으로 이어지길 기대합니다.
The global community is paying attention to the historic meeting between South Korea, one of the most developed Asian countries, and Mekong nations who have great development potential.
The South Korea-Mekong Summit. This will be the first time the two sides are holding a top-level meeting to discuss their relations.
Yes,
so this
yes.
is a very special event.
Yes, absolutely. We've had ministerial dialogue with the Mekong countries since 2011, i.e. an annual Korean foreign ministers and the foreign ministers of the 5 Mekong countries meeting. But we're taking that to the summit level. So this will be the first ROK Mekong Summit. Mekong, as I said, is a subgroup within the ASEAN region, within the ASEAN community, and they share that, magnanimous river that is the Mekong. And so they have their common challenges in managing this huge gift of nature. But they're also the pocket of growth that is leading the ASEAN economic development these days. It's also a region with great natural resources, so many countries are wanting to forge closer ties with Mekong, China, India, the US. And given the importance of this region, Mekong and ASEAN, we have decided to upgrade that to the summit level, of course, in agreement with the Mekong countries, because they also see great potential for their bilateral as well as the regional, sub-regional collaboration with South Korea.
Could you outline for us some of the major discussion topics and, of course, the anticipated accomplishment from this maiden event?
When President Moon visited Laos, he made a speech on his vision for the Korea-Mekong collaboration. And it was a very broad vision of wanting to build co-prosperity based upon shared experiences, based upon the sustainability of the collaboration, and based upon the shared aspiration for greater peace and stability. And the summit discussion will therefore be an opportunity to spell out the details of this vision. And we want then to bring that into a Han-Mekong declaration. And I think the way the discussions are going, it will be a very substantive declaration. We begin, as I said, with people, prosperity, and peace. And on people, we have plans to upgrade our human resources development programs with the Mekong countries, for example. On prosperity, we have plans to beef up our development assistance that we have been doing over the many years in their rural communities, rural agricultural communities development, very much sharing our experience with the Semaul movement. And on peace, many of these countries are struggling with the after effects of war. And so, clearing unexploded ordinances, I think they're called, is a huge challenge. And we work with UN agencies in many of these countries to deal with that challenge. So building safe, peaceful, and prosperous rural communities hits both the prosperity and the peace mark. And so some of these ideas will be reflected in the declaration that we're working on.
Right. Back in September, President Moon Jae-in laid out his vision for South Korea's relations with Mekong nations, and he hopes to see the miracle of the Hangang River spread out to the miracle of the Mekong River, as in Han-Mekong, as you earlier mentioned. So what are some of the essential elements that can help achieve this goal of co-prosperity?
As I said, it's underpinned by these three dimensions of sharedness, sustainability, and peace. And I think with the Mekong countries, as I said, the key challenge for the Mekong countries is the development gap vis-a-vis the rest of the ASEAN community. And so bringing our Korea's own development expertise and experience to assist them in bridging that gap is, I think, what the Mekong countries are looking for in their greater collaboration with South Korea. And I think we have a lot to bring to the table when it comes to that challenge of bridging the development gap.
Well, we're going to move on to our final topic of our session, which is the New Southern Policy. So we have a clip explaining to our viewers the details of the New Southern Policy, the main foreign policy of the Moon Jae-in administration.
In November 2017, President Moon Jae-in announced the New Southern Policy during his trip to Indonesia.
사람과 사람, 마음과 마음이 이어지는 사람 공동체, 안보 협력을 통해 아시아 평화에 기여하는 평화 공동체, 호혜적 경제 협력을 통해 함께 잘 사는 상생 번영 공동체를 함께 만들어가기를 희망합니다.
It is a plan to improve the diplomatic ties between South Korea and ASEAN, bringing it to the same level as South Korea's relationship with four surrounding global leaders, including the US, China, Japan, and Russia. The ASEAN nations that have established partnership with South Korea through the policy are the up-and-coming nations that have garnered global attention after years of rapid economic development. According to the IMF, the global economic growth rate stood at around 3% in 2019. But India posted 7% growth, while the economies of five major ASEAN nations, including Indonesia, Malaysia, the Philippines, Thailand, and Vietnam, each grew 5%. Since announcing the New Southern Policy, President Moon proposed measures for cooperation during his visits to the nations. And South Korea and the members have been working on deepening ties in various areas, including economy, culture, and people-to-people exchanges. As a result, the trade volume between South Korea and its new Southern policy partners has increased from $169.1 billion in 2017 to $181.2 billion in 2018. The South Korea-ASEAN Special Summit, set to take place this month to mark the 30th anniversary of their diplomatic ties, is also expected to help build stronger bilateral relations between Korea and its partners of the new Southern policy.
So 2 years has passed since the new Southern policy was announced by President Moon Jae-in, and in the meantime, he has managed to visit all related nations. So far, what are some of the tangible progress made under the new Southern policy?
Oh, I think the volume of trade has increased by about $10 billion to $160 billion at the end of last year. The people traffic has also increased, hitting 11 million at the end of last year. The number of Southeast Asian students in Korea have also increased a great deal. So the figures speak for themselves. But beyond those figures, Southeast Asia is now our biggest market for our construction firms. Now, it used to be the Gulf countries. It's now the Southeast Asian countries where you find many of our construction firms engaged in mega infrastructure projects. I think so. And yes, President Moon has visited all 10 ASEAN countries, and that alone is a huge accomplishment, to be able to do that within 2 years of his term, despite the businesses of managing the peace process here and managing our relations with the 4 big countries. But this is demonstrate his strong political will to forge closer ties with the 10 ASEAN countries and ASEAN as a whole. And I think so. This, of course, then feeds into the preparations for the summit. So the new Southern policy, as I said, is not a choice. It's a must. As we see the future of Korea, the peace, we really need to reach out much more vigorously to beyond our immediate neighbors to Southeast Asia, to India and beyond. When we do it with genuine intentions to grow together and to prosper together in greater peace.
Right, lots of untapped potential and atrophied muscles to flex and work out together. As you mentioned, the principle of 3P, people, prosperity, and peace is vital. What are Korea's direction and strategy in helping to achieve these values?
I think we have a whole of government special committee on our new Southern policy, headed by the economic advisor to the president. And the foreign ministry has a big part in that committee. The committee has worked out 16 key areas and 57 key projects to push the boundaries on our new Southern policy, and many of them are reflected in the ASEAN summit preparations. I think it's all captured in this idea of a people-centered community of peace and prosperity. And on the peace side, I should also emphasize that the ASEAN countries, many of them have diplomatic relations with North Korea, and they very much want to contribute to the peace process. They've been hugely supportive throughout the past 2 years, and they want to be that supportive, constructive voice in support of our peace process. It's both sides, both ways, whether it's people, prosperity, or peace. It's mutual help, mutual assistance, so that Korea and ASEAN can grow together, become more prosperous and more peaceful.
Everything is closely intertwined
Of course.
in one way or another. Speaking of being intertwined, the U.S., China, and Russia, they have come up with their own plans to seek regional cooperation. How does Korea's vision, including the new Southern policy, compare to these strategies by these nations?
Well, I think these strategies, that countries are coming up with their strategies for the region is an indication of the growing importance of this region, the growing importance of ASEAN and ASEAN centrality. We say we are open to collaboration with the other strategies in areas where our plans and our interests come together based upon the principles of inclusiveness, openness and transparency, and also based upon international norms. So we have just come out with a joint fact sheet spelling out where the U.S. strategy for the Indo-Pacific meets, converges with our own new Southern policy, and where we will collaborate to the benefit of our partners in Southeast Asia. And we will do the same with other initiatives, for example, such as China's One Belt and One Road.
Inclusiveness and openness is difficult but important in this era of rapid change and where we can't anticipate where the change will come from. Closing our session today, our last question, 30 years of strong relationship between South Korea and ASEAN members, and we're looking forward to more decades of good relationships to come. Could you share with us your views on the road ahead for the next decades to come?
Well, I think I can only speak in very broad terms, but I think Korea and ASEAN, we're all, small, medium countries. We share some painful experience of the past, whether it's colonial rule, aggression, civil war, and I think we very much are of the same mind in having no other motive than to really become closer together in peace and prosperity. So I think that shared mindset will keep us on track as we build the next 30 years of ASEAN-Korea partnership.
Right, this is a very exciting time, not just for South Korea and ASEAN members, but the rest of the world, as they will be closely watching this very special event, the commemorative summit between the two sides. And we do hope anticipated progress is made, and then some.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for making time for us today.
Arirang has a huge role to play in the lead up, but also post Busan summit, because this is not going to be just a one-off event. As I say, it will be the beginning of our new Southern Policy 2.0. It will be the launching pad for a much upgraded Korea-ASEAN partnership.
We're happy to be an important cog in the wheel. Thank you for highlighting that before we wrap things up, and we appreciate you, Foreign Minister Kang Kyung-wha, coming here and making our program complete today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We appreciate it. And this is where we have to wrap things up. Do join us again same time next week for a brand new episode of The Point. Thank you for watching.